In July of 2000, Ontario's Court of Appeal declared Canada's prohibition of marijuana to be unconstitutional. If Parliament did not amend its law to allow for medical use within a year, marijuana possession for all Ontario residents would be legal. In May of 2003, an Ontario court ruled that there exists no valid law prohibiting the minor possession of marijuana because the federal government had failed to comply with the July 2000 order. Possessing and smoking marijuana in Ontario was legal. In June of 2003, Ontario's Court of Appeal declared that Ontario's exclusion of same-sex couples from the common law definition of marriage violated the Constitution. In Ontario, same-sex couples could now enter into unions recognized as marriages. Some in the United States were upset by these developments. So, in July of 2003, Freedom Party's Paul McKeever was invited to Detroit to answer the question,
Canada, oh Canada, land of the free and immoral.
Right, Canada! Right, Canada!
Their left-wing political annex now paving the way for cannabis tokers to puff it, pass it, and possess it. What will this do for us in the States, and how does it affect our homeland security efforts?
Right, Canada! Right, Canada!
Same-sex marriage, now to be recognized in our neighboring Canada, the impact it will have on Americans crossing the border to tie the knot.
Right, Canada! Right, Canada!
And trash or treasure, they increasingly dump and drill their garbage in our backyards, using us as a waste station. Is this indicative of what they think of us?
Right, Canada! Right, Canada!
We'll tackle all that next on Street Beat. I'm Tara Wall. You're watching Street Beat, the show that's not afraid to tackle the tough issues in your community, your neighborhood, on your street. Our issues this week, the liberalization of Canada. Is it making them our friend or foe? But first, my 2 cents. Canada is no friend to the U.S. If they are, they sure have a funny way of showing it. They abandoned us during Operation Iraqi Freedom, continue to carelessly dump their filthy trash in our country, and turn their noses up at our drug laws, marriage covenants, and morality in general. Their fake handshakes and half smiles are laughable when supposed agreements just turn into what they want to do. That's fine. They don't care for us, and frankly, they can do what they want in their country. But when what they do begins to affect how we live, therein lies the problem. Their continuing downward spiral of immorality is affecting what decency, neighborly manners, and morality we have left, making them more foe than any friend I'd care to have. Earlier this month, the Ontario Court of Appeals ruled Canadian law preventing gay marriage unconstitutional and void. Bills are now pending to decriminalize possession of pot, and the environmental battles we've had with them over trash stinks to high heaven. The impact of these liberal social antics hurting Canada's relationship with us is our pulse of the street. The United States is Canada's most important ally and defense partner. The history of our relationship reflects a unique friendship based on shared values and shared experiences.
Canada and Michigan have had such a long relationship and a very close relationship, and it's concerning.
Today, that friendship threatened and likely to weaken if liberal trends in the Canadian culture continue.
All of those things that they've been doing doesn't make them good neighbors.
And while many Canadian officials have jumped on the humanistic bandwagon, others recognize the slippery slope.
I don't see that as necessarily really doing anything to better those relations. I think because for some people it will just add to their concern.
It's like any long-term relationship. Being a good neighbor is a two-sided equation which gets out of whack when one steps on the other.
We're hoping that Canadians will wake up and at least come to grips with how much, I think, harm they're doing, not only to our environment here in Michigan, to their own, and to the, I think, sound culture that we have here in the great Midwest.
And we've come down to the Detroit riverfront with Canada as our backdrop to tackle these issues. And joining me now is attorney Tracy Lee of the American Family Association, also Paul McKeever another attorney who is the leader of the Freedom Party in Canada. Now, first and foremost, with these social liberal policies, I mean, is Canada really our friend?
No, absolutely. I don't think really the things that are going on in Canada have much to do with America at all, except that I think what you're finding now is that a lot of the people who grew up in the 60s are assuming seats on the bench, and you're seeing basically that sort of 60s, yeah, that sort of 60s feeling is,
which doesn't make Canada our friend by taking on the 60s where free sex, free love, and no morals doesn't really make Canada.
Well, it's interesting, you know.
We don't want to go back to the 60s, maybe the 50s or the.
I can feel that sentiment, but I think we have to remember that both Canada and the USA have as their heritage, philosophically, their Western heritage is a defense of the individual's rights of life, liberty, and property.
Well, we started out that way. I mean, you know, we started out with the same ideas, but, you know, hasn't it gradually, you know, disintegrated, at least on Canada side, and to say that it doesn't impact us? I mean, it certainly does have an impact on what we're doing here, doesn't it?
Already, since we've had that Supreme Court decision banning, getting rid of the sodomy laws, now we've got people coming over and saying, or actually our people are going over. We've had 9 couples already that have gone over to get marriage licenses.
Demanding to be recognized.
Demanding to be recognized, and they're trying to be recognized here.
Well, I think that what's going on there.
And then the border issues, of course. When you decriminalize pot and drug issues, I mean, what does that do for our border agents?
Now we've got our border.
I think that means you get a lot of visitors in Canada. But I think what you have to remember.
No, because earlier this week, now tourism is down. You had the mayor coming out saying, come back to Canada because of some of these issues they believe.
Oh, I was being facetious, but yeah. I mean the party that might be going on for the next few months while the legislature in Canada tries to figure out what to do, how to modify the law. But I think what the main thing you have to look at here is to make sure, because these changes will eventually happen throughout North America and should, because America, like Canada, believes that every individual has the right to decide what goes into their body and also to decide with whom they wish to associate. The important thing, I think, for the Americans to learn from the Canadian example on the same-sex marriage, however, is that it's not necessary to redefine marriage. It's simply necessary to make sure that the same economic programs are available, whether you're married to a woman, a man, or what have you.
First of all, there is no right to privacy, which is what the Supreme Court ruled. They said this was their basis, right to privacy. That's not even in the that's not even a constitutional protection. Also, with the border, with you go over there and legalize pot, now they're going to come over here drinking and driving and smoking pot. They've just come across from Canada. Now we've got all the issues
to deal with.
They're going to run into.
Yeah, I think that's probably already happening as much as it ever will.
Yeah,
it's already there. That it's legal over there just means more people will do it over there.
All right. More people are going to come back here with issues. And then the same thing with the same sex. I mean, now they're coming over here demanding all kinds of rights, and they're saying
in our country, and we have different beliefs. Hey, you know, of course we could go on for this forever, and we're going to continue the rest of the show. I want to thank both of you once again, though, one more time. Canada, friend or foe?
Absolutely friend.
No way.
Foe.
Foe.
All right, I want to thank Tracy Lee and Paul McKeever. Up next, our street thoughts. We'll hear what you had to say about Canada. We'll be back in a moment.
Marijuana legalization in May of 2003 had no negative effects. There was no chaos, no civil unrest, no problem. Nonetheless, in October of 2003, Ontario's Court of Appeal overruled the lower court decision and recriminalized non-medical marijuana use. In the summer of 2006, Canada's new Conservative government announced it would bring a motion to reopen the same-sex marriage issue.